Oh, that is okay. Do you think we could do it like at an active issue?
That's an access challenge, is the thing.
If I could find one.
If we could find one, yeah. But I think for the lesson plan, it would be good to figure out ways to make it virtual. Exactly. Yeah, but we definitely could do it at an active fish wheel if we can find a good one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one that's accessible, safely accessible.
Accessible.
A lot of them are on, you know, down somebody's private road.
Right, but even that, if we had permission, would pose
Yeah.
a problem.
Yeah, if we had permission. And especially the way we're doing it this year, because we're taking small groups, it's easier to get permission for that than it is for, we want to have a free-for-all here, yeah. So.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of why someone wouldn't want to do that is if they don't want everyone to know where their fish wheel is. But if it's already common knowledge.
Yeah, people are just secretive about even where they are, and then people are sometimes concerned about having public access to their property in case someone got hurt. Is another concern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're the only ones down in the Chitna area right now you can't walk to. You know, there used to be ones you could just walk right up to.
There's quite a few in the Tasman area.
Yeah. Yeah, if you know people who have them who you would feel comfortable, you know, talking to and asking. Sometimes we also will work with one of the native villages to when we want to access a fish wheel. Sometimes they have one that's, you know, kind of set up for people to go to. What are you listening to? What are you listening to? Hey, how's it going? Good. Have you heard the news that there was an active COVID case up in Chisto? Yeah, and rumors of another one in the valley. So, yeah, apparently it was a family member of the construction crew that's working there, but had contact with quite a few community members. They're testing. They're on lockdown and are testing. Yeah, so it seems like the news is just getting out. It hasn't shown up because there's a little bit of a delay on those counts that, you know, the state sends out. Yeah. Facebook, but Shishna the tribal council is talking about it on Facebook. Yeah, and then I heard a rumor of another one that's even more uncertain, but you know, there's not much news about it yet, but we'll see. Don't know where. Yeah. Anyways, hey, are you guys going out to Willow, all the different lakes? Silver Lake anytime soon? Okay, because I'm looking for some things that we need for upcoming programming that I can't find here, and I wonder if they might have been left out there. One thing is there's a big reel tape measure, you know, it's like one of those big 200-foot long tape measures. Yeah, there's that, and then there's also
the little measuring board that we use for measuring juvenile fish, it's basically a little piece of pipe with a piece of tape measure glued to the bottom. You've seen it. Yeah, I wonder if they got left there after aquatic camp. I remember that, you know, whenever too many people get packing up, it gets a little hectic. Fish measuring board. Yeah, I mean, it's a long shot. It's a long shot, but if you guys wouldn't mind just looking around for it, that'd be great. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I know that I remember once someone was helping me pack for ice fishing day, and that the little fish measuring board got put in there, you know, even though it's way too small for those fish. And, you know, I'm just trying to think back through when I last saw it. I don't think we used it last summer. Anyways, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I know we used it at aquatic camp, but I kind of have a memory of maybe not being able to find it last summer either. So who knows, anyways. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's a chance that it's here and I just haven't looked in the right place. But I'm just kind of grasping at straws, seeing what we can figure out. We're going to do, for stewardship program, we're going to trap and measure some little fishies. Yeah. Down in Moose Creek. Just Moose Creek. We just were waiting around yesterday. You know, there's a bunch of nice places to access Moose Creek right below where it crosses the Richardson at the library. So we're gonna hike probably from Fish and Game down to, there's a pullout near BLM. Set traps. Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be nice to get out of here. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, have a good trip to Silver. Okay, bye. What are you listening to, Moses?
This is a fish wheel thing. It's on YouTube.
Cool. It must be entertaining. I was just watching you go.
No, it was excruciating. He had his hand in it.
Oh.
I'm like, oh, my stomach.
Fish wheel safety should be part of your talk.
Right. I mean, you get your arm caught in there, but it's going to break it completely. It's going to mess you up.
Oh, yeah. There's lots of like little guillotines built into a fish wheel.
And that water current, there's no stopping it.
Mm-hmm. I saw a video once of a seal getting scooped up by a fish wheel, and you know they're big and strong, and it just trashes the thing, you know.
Man. Stronger than the wood.
Yeah.
Hey, Robin. Is True North and Magnetic North different?
They are different, yeah.
Is it like, the North Star like off, or is that?
Not sure about that. I know that for every location, there's something called declination, and that is how far to north is up from Magnetic, and it changes by location. Like, I know in this area, it's about 30 degrees in a lot. You can find it on a map.
So using celestial navigation will give you true north, but using a compass will just give you a.
Yeah, you have to correct the declination when you're using a compass. But I don't know if the North Star is
Well, yeah, I will. Yeah, it's Polaris True North. Yeah, because the Earth is tilted on its axis. Well, I know it's not magnetic. It points 44 feet 9 inches away from true north.
What was that again?
It's about 44 feet 9 inches away from the North Pole. Yeah, so if you follow it directly to the North Pole, you'll be a little off by like half of a foot, less than like a quarter of a football.
It would be hard to follow it directly, because it's
well,
so
if you had
you have to. Oh, things get lost in here. It's frustrating. I'm having so bored with these fish.
Carry on, Mr. Buddage.
doesn't mess Amanda and Timmy up.
So it's like a 4-point outline.
What?
So this is a lesson is basically just a 4-point outline.
I don't think so. I think it's pretty different. A lesson needs to have materials. It needs to have some background. It needs to have things like what ages it's appropriate for.
Well, you could just have, but like to make one, you just have a note that says materials, this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can use any format that works for you, if that's what you mean by it being a 4-point outline. You can use any format that works for you, but you need to include those bits of information.
Do I
John?
need to write an abstract for it?
An abstract? It is good to have a short sentence at the beginning that says what it is. Okay. John Hardaway waiting. Okay.
Abstract's usually like 250 words.
It's weird, my glasses cast shadows on my eyes. It looks like I'm wearing war paint. I was looking at it going, man, did I like smear something on my face? No, it's my glasses. Okay. Yeah, maybe if I'm over here, it's not too bad of a backdrop. Window.
Hey, you know how people take coffee for hangovers?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you put alcohol in your coffee, what the ratio would have to be in order to exit out.
Well, they act on your body in different ways, so I don't think it's not quite that simple.
I wonder if it could be though.
Some people do believe in more alcohol for hangovers, but I can tell you from personal experience that doesn't really, it may make the pain go away for a while, but it doesn't solve the problem.
like putting snow on a burn instead of like real things. It just, you have to hold it on, and as soon as you let it off, it hurts again. You have to go get more snow.
Well, actually, the cooling is valid part of first aid for burns, though. That's the first thing you do is stop it from burning anymore. Do you remember Matt said for like 20 minutes you're supposed to cool it?
I was cooling, when I burned my hand, I was cooling from 10 at night till 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Just, like every time my snow ran out, I went out and grabbed more. It was probably it was the most excruciating night I ever had.
Oh, I bet. And so it does, I think it does actually help the cooling, whereas more alcohol, it just kind of delays the pain. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and log into Zoom on that computer, there are 2 people waiting already.
Oh, I wanted to be the first one here.
Well, we're just going to be looking for our team members. Yeah, go ahead and join. We're going to be looking for our team members. Oh, it's on recording. We've got to stop that.
What's the ID?
how we quantify it, and most importantly, how we mitigate those risks. And that's into our engineering design and how we carry out and maintain this system. So we have a very skilled personnel across Alyeska that all share that responsibility and that accountability on how we steward the system across this. We all are Alaskans. We love Alaska. We live here, we recreate here, and this is our backyard. So it's very important to us that we do a good job of protecting the environment here. And that's part of our core mission too, is how do we safely and efficiently move oil across our system. Part of the design, recognizing we are midstream, and what that means is there's the upstream, midstream, and downstream. Alyeska pipeline is considered midstream. We're moving it from the upstream clients that are actually removing the product from the ground. We are the midstream part of that process that's ultimately getting it to market, which is downstream in the refineries. So we're that glue in between those two entities, those stakeholders that ultimately feed the state's economy here in Alaska. We make up a big portion of the economy and fund the economy here in the state. The storage tanks here in Valdez are really that holding ground. We don't have a tanker tied up continuously. So the storage tanks here, which are roughly in tank dike cell areas, again, designed for some of the challenges that we have here in Alaska. We have earthquakes, we have a forest fire going on up around the Yukon River area right now. And we have a lot of permafrost, as Amanda had mentioned earlier. These are all challenges on how we design a system to where it can safely move that oil each day and do that reliably. And we do have very robust processes in place for that, robust design standards in place to meet that challenge. These tanks are a part of that. How do we safely store that oil so that we have time to keep the oil moving? We don't shut down the pipeline other than scheduled maintenance. And there are process upsets that we have to deal with on occasion as well. But for the most part, the pipeline is flowing continuously unless we have scheduled maintenance shutdowns to perform critical work. The tanks are constantly being filled. And so the tankers, we don't have a tanker up alongside to fill continuously. So the tanks are what actually give us that buffer, that time to be able to store oil while tankers come in and out of the system. The tankers are a big part of that. We have an escort system here. That's Prince William Sound is a very sensitive area. It's beautiful. We want to keep it that way. So we take it very seriously to keep oil where it's supposed to be, and keep those materials in place. And our escort response is a big part of that. So we, after the Exxon Valdez oil spill, there was a very concerted focus and effort to make sure that we prevent anything like that from ever happening again. And the tanker escort service actually meet tankers out at Hinchinbrook coming into the port here and escort those vessels that are laden all the way into the terminal here, assist with getting them tied up to the berth where we we hook up loading arms, load the oil, and then escort the vessel back out to sea, and then so they can make their way on down to the West Coast refineries there, where it gets converted into gasoline and other useful products there. But the tugs serves our vessel response system here is a big part of Alyeska's design as well, to make sure that we're protecting the environment and moving that oil safely each day. Part of those throughput challenges that I was speaking to earlier, where we were flowing back at our peak 2 million a day, and now we're about a quarter of that. That resonant time for a barrel of oil in our system poses challenges for us today. This 48-inch line, which was designed for 2 million plus a day, now we're flowing a quarter of that. That barrel of oil spending 18 days within the pipeline, it gets cold. And as we all know, Alaska is cold in the wintertime. So we're a warm oil pipeline. When we were flowing 2 million a day, the oil coming out of the ground in Prudhoe is hot. It's 100 plus degrees for most of the fields. And so coming into pump station 1 at the north slope, again, coming in at 100 degrees, and to take 3 days to transit to Valdez, back when we were flowing at our peak, it would still come into Valdez at 70+ degrees. But today, flowing a quarter of that, spending 18 days in the system, we're having to add heat at various spots along the line to keep that oil above freezing. Our system is a warm oil system, so we can't afford to have the temperature drop below freezing, because there is, even though it's a somewhat refined product coming into taps, there is small traces of water and other products within that barrel of oil that's being transported. That water does separate out. We all know what happens to water when it drops below 32 degrees, and that creates operational issues for us that we actively work to avoid. And so those are, again, challenges that we deal with today. We do that very well. We have ongoing projects and improvements to the system to ensure that we're meeting the challenges of the day. And we have good standards in place and good people in place to meet those challenges. Just looking through the list. Anything else to add, Kate?
No, you're good.
So, a lot of information there, a lot of details. Very proud of our system here and our people. Something that's not commonly understood is Alyeska Pipeline doesn't own any of the. We provide a service. We operate the system on behalf of the owner companies, but we don't own any assets. We are just providing a service, and so that's something that's not commonly understood or known amongst the general public. But that's what we're here for. That's what we're about. And yeah, and I just summarize with that.
Right. Thank you. We will stick around for some questions at the end.
Thank you, Kate and Clint. Appreciate that. Very interesting. I was curious about how slow can that oil go without getting too cold. I'm going to provide a brief history of oil in Alaska to everybody, and that'll help provide some context for what we see today behind Amanda and up, along the 800 miles, wherever you may be along the pipeline. One theory is that a long time ago, plants and animals were buried, and the heat and the pressure transformed that biomass of living things into fossil fuels. And in relationship to Alaska's history, the Civil War ended only like 2 years prior to what was known as Seward's Folly. Please type in the chat if you know what event that was in Alaska's history, 2 years after the Civil War, 1867. Yeah, it was the best purchase ever. Yeah, yes, very good. The purchase of Alaska. Despite being a bargain at just 2 cents an acre, the Secretary of State, William Seward, he was ridiculed by Congress and public for acquiring so much land that was considered useless. But little did they know, like Robin said, how valuable a purchase it was. There's value in the timber, the mining, tourism, fisheries, and of course, oil. And got a next slide. Go back one, please. That was a picture there. Yeah, that's not the Alaska's purchase from Russia slide, but number 14. Yeah, that slide right there. That's a close-up picture. May have mistaken it as just a blank screen, but it's a close-up picture of something. Can you chat in there? Tell me what it is, especially the youth along. Okay, think about our topic today. Yes, it's crude oil. Thank you for my wife upstairs. I didn't give her a hint, but yeah, so by the late 1800s, we're on slide 4, by the way, on my side. The gasoline engine was invented, back to World War I, Moses. And soon after, there were cars, boats, and planes that were powered by gas. But prior to World War I, between 1914 and 1818, is mainly, the main use of oil was kerosene, which lit lamps. But that changed. And so I'm on the slide for World War II. American oil, which accounted for 6 billion barrels out of 7 billion barrels consumed by the Allies in World War II, which brought us victory. And got us also 15 years away from Alaska being a state. Yes, 1959, Alaska became the 49th state. And so go ahead, next slide. Yeah, and construction began in 1974. And its original design lifespan was 30 years, but it's now well into its second lifetime. So they did a great job with their design. And it's an amazing feat of engineering to carry that warm oil over the permafrost and through earthquake fault zones and over mountain passes like the three Clint mentioned. Many miles over permafrost too. That crude oil, when it's taken to downstream, the refiners, they turn that into lighter and heavier products through a process called distillation. And mostly it's jet fuel. It's produced, jet fuel, diesel, and heating oils are produced. But there are also 6,000 other items made from crude oil, like fertilizer, perfumes, soaps, diapers, plastics, paints. And fortunately for us in Alaska, we have heating oil. And it's not only important to us as the Alaska economy as a whole, but also in a few weeks here, we're going to be seeing a $992 permanent fund dividend because those royalties that the oil companies pay for leasing the state's land is shared with Alaska residents, as well as helping, feed our economy, our state's economy. So that's a little bit of the history, where we came from and where we are today. Kenny, on to you.
So Kenny's frozen. Amanda, can you see Kenny? He's not moving on my screen.
Just want to mention a few
There he
things. Oh, am I? Well,
now we see you moving. Okay, go for it.
I got too close to the Willow Mountain there, so I'm going to walk the other direction. Hey, I just wanted to mention a few safety things with the pipeline as I do my afternoon fitness walk. So one thing that is kind of cool about the pipeline is it's this whole area where I'm walking right here is a right-of-way. And a right-of-way was explained to me by one of the Denali security guys in Glen Ellen as it's treated similar to a highway, meaning it has multiple use. I think somebody mentioned earlier during this presentation already how the 800 miles of Trans-Alaska Pipeline actually runs through different land ownership. Some of it's private, some of it's state land, and some of it's federal or, other land like that, maybe even some native land in there. So to get access through some of that, it's good to have permission. And we actually did get official permission today to be here. And it was really simple how we did that. We just asked for a right-of-way use permit. And they actually call this, they have a nickname for it, it's called a RUG, R-U-G, and this is what it looks like. And it's just a little sheet of paper from, this actually came from one of the security guards in Glen Ellen who helps patrol and keep eyes on the pipeline access area. And he just basically filled this out, and it comes with some stipulations on here, kind of some do's and don'ts. And really, that's all you need. You can be back here. He said, people sometimes will get the right-of-way use permits for hiking, berry picking, hunting, fishing, maybe just to access it to get to some of their private land. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Some other things that I want to talk to you guys about are really, this pipeline is pretty easy to get to, especially for most of us Copper River Basin residents. There's spots where you can just walk up to it or maybe even drive up to it pretty close. But it's really important to remember that this pipeline, especially on a day like today, where it's kind of rainy and slick, that you're never monkeying around or using it as a jungle gym, because it's not your property, for one. You wouldn't want somebody climbing all over your car or your tree fort or the roof of your house without asking permission. And it's really easy, it'd be really easy to fall off something like this, and then you got issues. So it's good to respect the pipeline and know that the pipeline will respect you. I got that from my colleague Amanda Frenchu. I kind of like that one when she told me that one. Couple other little safety tips. The speed limit along this right of way for the pipeline is generally it's 25 miles per hour. So that's good to remember if you're four-wheeling or maybe dirt biking. And also if you're using some sort of motorized vehicle, whether it be a machine, dirt bike, or four-wheeler, there's a lot of gates, and there could be chains or even cables in certain spots. So really be careful when you are using a dirt bike or a four-wheeler through this area, because injuries can happen if you're not paying attention and you run into something you're not expecting. What else am I forgetting here? Oh, one really big thing, especially here to remember in about 2 months, is there's not, never shoot down this easement. See this along here or across this way. I know it can be tempting, because especially up by the Haggard Creek and Sourdough area, there are a lot of caribou push through there in August and September, but it's really important to remember that there's other people using this right of way. It could be other land users. It could be maybe the Alyeska has crew. Maybe they're doing surveys. Maybe they're doing some maintenance work. So really be careful that you don't shoot down the pipeline. It's actually illegal, but you can use it and go under the pipeline to get to your favorite hunting spot or swamp, maybe right in this area here. Well, that's kind of all I got for safety. If you have any specific questions, be more than happy to try to answer them. You could type them into the chat, or maybe ask them at the end of the presentation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kenny. And Kenny, your information on safety really segues well into what I get to talk about. Basically, all these wonderful people have been talking about what happens when things go right, and I get the task of talking about what happens when things go wrong. And that is oil spills. And I want to make sure that I emphasize that even though we're going to talk about oil spills, that if you consider the millions and millions and billions of gallons that have gone through the pipeline, it is remarkable how little has spilled. But it also, even a tiny amount of crude oil is very, very toxic. And so I know that the pipeline is doing all they can to avoid it. And we wanted to bring it up because we believe that every person has a responsibility to help avoid oil spills too. There is something you can do. Now, the most famous oil spill in Alaska has been from the Exxon Valdez oil spill in 1989. That was my birthday, folks. Worst birthday present ever. And that's the one that we hope never ever happens again, but it also had a silver lining. It brought a lot of awareness to oil spills and a lot of new procedures. And I feel very confident that if there was another major spill, that all of the players would be much more organized this time. So if you ever want a fascinating read some of the history of the Exxon Valdez, what went wrong, what went right, and what we could do different next time. Go ahead. There have also been some spills on land. The biggest spill that we had on land was in 2001 up near Livengood, north of Fairbanks. About 250,000 gallons spilled, and that is the picture of it. What happened was an inebriated individual decided to shoot at the pipeline. And it happened to hit, the story I've heard is it happened to hit perhaps at a weld where it was just a teensy bit weaker, and a very small hole formed. And so the oil was coming out at extremely, extremely high pressure. It was at the bottom of a small hill. And it took them days to get this little tiny leak under control. It was not on a lake or a river, and so didn't do as much damage as it could have, but still 250,000 gallons is a lot. And then there was a sabotage event. I still want to be on the other one. There was a sabotage event in 1978 that also, actually, oh, that one spilled more, 670,000 gallons. That was sabotage. And then there was a leak near Delta Junction more recently that was about 5,000 gallons. Now I have this cool little book that I got from Alyeska Pipeline Facts, and they have how much oil is leaked every year. And some years there's a whole lot. And some years there's very, very little. There's quite a few years that it's less than a gallon. And then there are 2 years when there was no oil leaked at all. So just to put it into perspective, there have been some oil leaks, but there's also been lots and lots of days and years when no oil comes out of the pipeline. We were interviewing some pipeline maintenance workers in Glen Allen once with one of our teen programs. And the youth asked, oh, he's retired now, I don't remember his name. They asked this man, a Glen Allen resident, what's your job? And he said, it was so cool. He said, I keep the oil in the pipe, everything else is details. So we just want to put a shout out for keeping the oil in the pipe. So we're gonna pause. If you could turn off the screen share for a minute. I wanna show you some of the things that happen when oil meets water. Now, several people have mentioned that the pipeline crosses something like 800 rivers and streams in its 800-mile history. So I'm gonna attempt to show you a little bit of science in a bowl here, but please give me feedback if it's not working for you. So from making salad dressing, many of us know that if you drop a little bit of oil in water, it floats on the surface, right? So I'm not using crude oil, that's super toxic. I've got some vegetable oil mixed with black tempera paint, and I am gonna drop just a drop of it into this bowl of water. And can you see how it kind of stays in the same place for a little while and then it starts spreading? So that little bit of water, that drop of water is a slick, and then as it spreads around its edge, there becomes a sheen, and that is the kind of multicolored, shiny thing that you see often in parking lots after a rain. But as you can see, that one drop of oil is filling this whole bowl. The sheen is spreading and going throughout the whole bowl. So in a way, that means that a small amount of oil can contaminate a lot of water. It also means that there are ways to clean up that oil, because instead of mixing in, it's floating on the surface. So that's kind of basics 101. What happens when oil meets water? Now, in the Copper River Valley, we love our Copper River and its tributaries, and many of you know what it looks like, kind of like a cup of cocoa or coffee with cream. It's super thick. But if you've ever settled out, has anyone ever settled out some Copper River water? Here's some water for the Copper River. And there's the silt on the bottom that settles out. The water is actually fairly clear. Now, when oil, especially really thick crude oil, spills into that silty Copper River water, it acts a little differently. And I have a jar of the same Copper River water that we mixed some oil in, and then I had Moses shake it for about, 20 minutes or so. You can see some foamy stuff on the top, and that is called mousse, not like a moose with antlers, but more like chocolate mousse. And that is just kind of a foamy substance that forms when oil gets agitated for a long time. And then you can see that this water isn't clear. if you compare it to this water, here's the water that we just settled out. And then here's the water that has oil mixed in. The oil actually bonds with those little silt particles and gets carried down into the water column. So in a silty river like the Copper or the Yukon or any of our glacial fed rivers, you're going to have the oil not just floating on top, but actually traveling down into the water column. And of course, getting down into the salmon spawning beds and all the places that we want to keep really pristine. And then we have one more sample. This was some water that we we beat a little bit, and you can see that this was just a few drops of oil and it made once again that thick mousse. So we can go back on screen sharing, I think. Now the big kind of danger when the pipeline does a spill, of course it's hard on any wildlife and any vegetation that crude oil hits. There's a lot of fumes. But the biggest danger is if the water, if it goes into moving water, even if it does stay on top and doesn't start going down into the silty water, it's moving so fast that they need to be really, really prepared and ready to react in an instant if you're going to catch that spilling oil as it flows down the river before it just is gone. As you know, most of our rivers go really fast, and so at an 8-mile-per-hour river, that would be like you running as fast as you can. That's how fast that oil is going. Within an hour, it's 8 miles away. Within a day, it's a couple of 100 miles away. So can you go up one, please? So, so quick reaction is really key in an oil spill. And this is, I think Kate was here with us that day. This is one of the oil spill response containers. And if you walk along the pipeline, you may see 30-foot Connex boxes. There's 1 or 2 of them stationed anywhere the pipeline goes near a waterway. And we got a chance with one of our programs to see inside. You can see in the box over on the left, there were several inflatable boats. This is the station near Willow Lake. There's several inflatable boats. There's lots and lots of boom that they use to contain the oil. And then there's just tons of equipment so that if there was an oil spill, instead of kind of going, where'd you leave that boom, Joe? They would know that whoever could get to that Connex would have the equipment they need. Okay, next one. And then once there is an oil spill, these are some of the tools that will be used to clean it up. First, there's containment. The fact that oil floats means that if you have a floating boom, which is what this is a picture of, that will keep the oil from going further in the water, especially in still water, a little bit more difficult in moving water. They can also use skimming. If the oil is still on the surface, they can pick the oil right up off the surface. They can use absorbents, which are basically just using cotton or a material that'll soak up the oil and they can get it out of there. And then dispersants are sometimes used. They're one of the more controversial methods because the dispersant is kind of like if you had a really greasy pot of dishwater and you dripped some soap in it. It would mean that the grease dispersed, but it wouldn't go away. But it keeps it from being a thick, oily mat in one place. It disperses it. So next one, please. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. There's a question. Are the containers locked? And if so, who has the key? Kate and Clint, can you answer that for us?
Sure. So they are locked. And we have Alyeska employees and contract employees who do regular patrols and maintenance on all along the right of way. So a variety of different TAPSM employees have keys to access those, as well as other facilities along the right of way should they need to.
Okay, thanks. So my question to everyone was, what can we do as citizens to help prevent oil spills? And then I also wanted to get Kate and Clint's wisdom about who is the first person to call. If you saw either something questionable happening along the pipeline or actual oil spilling, is that a 911 call? Is there an Alyeska hotline?
So if you are on the right of way, every, I don't know, certain number of feet, there is a sign with a number to call, and it's out, so you can call Alyeska. Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah, if you're recreating or just visiting the right of way and you see any kind of issue, yeah, it's absolutely important to report it. And the numbers are posted, as I said, every few feet.
Okay.
If on a different day, I actually live right on the right of way, and my original plan was to be on the right of way, so I could have shown you one of those signs, but we don't have them here on the terminal since we own the property.
Maybe Amanda and Kenny can find one for us. Is there one near the Interp site there at mile 90? There must be somewhere.
Stay tuned. Earlier you heard the gentleman there talk about the rug, and that gives details specific too on if you were to see something that's alarming or concerning, just different contact information for how to get in touch with appropriate authorities so we can be proactive and take action. So the community and the citizens, a lot of times when we evaluate regularly our leak detection system, but we spend even more emphasis and time on prevention. But the community is a big part of that system of being able to keep an eye on the asset and ensure that it's behaving, and that there aren't other dangers that we should be notified about. So we definitely appreciate the support of the community there.
We have another question here. Do the dispersants also make it more difficult to get the oil gathered? And yes, that is one of the big issues with dispersants. And I'm not an expert on this. Kate and Clint may know better, but I think they're being used less these days because they do kind of put that pollution into the whole water column instead of in a form that they may be able to be gathered.
Yeah, you know, I think you might, I don't know if a little bit later in your presentation you're going to talk about contingency plans, but our contingency plans, at least here in Prince William Sound, our requirements is that we pick up oil that spills mechanically. So that means with boom, with skimmers, with sorbents, and we do have dispersants, and we have to go, the decision to use them has to go through several levels of government approval and stakeholder approval. So they'd be used, you know, it's not to use a cliche, but it's a tool in the toolbox. But our requirements is that we pick oil up mechanically, if and when at all possible. And we have to have the equipment to pick it up mechanically, if that makes sense.
Okay, great, that's good to know. Yeah, it's like, to use another cliche, the solution to pollution is not dilution, right? And there's another question. Is it true that the disbursements may have been responsible for people becoming sick after the Exxon spill?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've spoken to someone, her name is eluding me at this moment, from Cordova, Ricky Ott from Cordova, who got to fly out over the Exxon Valdez spill shortly after it happened. And there was just huge amounts of crude. And she said they could smell it inside the airplane and instantly your eyes were burning. And so the fumes, I think, from the crude oil are a big, one of the biggest toxins that get ignored because they do go up into the air. Yeah, okay. And no, I wasn't going to get into contingency plans. So I'm really, really glad that you were able to contribute that. Thanks so much, Kate. Any other questions from those of you? You can unmute your mic and just shout out or type it into the chat bar, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, and anything that we didn't cover that you feel like is important, especially pipeline experts on with us here?
No, just that. Thank you for this opportunity. It was a really cool. It was an experiment for us too. And you know, as Clint mentioned, we are really proud of the work we do. We live here. This is our backyard. And I'll see if I can flip the phone again. You know, it's pretty beautiful here in Valdez. You can see the port down there. It's and it's really important to us that we do everything we can to keep the oil in the pipe. And thank you especially for talking about the public's role and the safety, the importance of public awareness around the pipeline. You know, making sure you folks do get their right-of-way permits and are aware of what, you know, that it's a big piece of equipment and it can be around, and some of our worst days have come when the public has interacted with it in a harmful way. So that was really educational. I'm so glad that you talked about that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that 3 of the biggest spills that I came across in my research were really all human error, or some of them even beyond human error, kind of like human stupidity and meanness. And so I thought that was really interesting that it's not the technology that's failing in some of these failures. We had a question, what is the design life of the pipeline? And another one, are there any plans? Oh, go ahead.
Do we want to answer the pipe? Can we answer the design of the life of the pipe? Okay.
Yeah, so original design life was 30 years. And, but obviously we're just past year 40 recently.
Yeah, tomorrow, the 20th, is our 43rd birthday.
Wow.
I know you're saying we don't look a day over, you know, 30, but.
Yeah. But yeah, to extend the life of taps, our system is the original designers did a phenomenal job with the system. We've obviously done a lot of upgrades since the first day, and we do a lot of, like we spoke to earlier, a lot of effort to prevent any potential integrity issues. So that's something that we track very religiously with inline inspections and piping inspections, just verifying the integrity of the system. So we've been maintaining that design life as with time. So as we went through the 30-year initial design life, we're looking out and planning for the next 40. Yeah. So we're really maintaining the system with that perspective.
If you think about it like a car, you know, cars are built for, I don't know, 10 or 15 or a certain number of years. But, you know, growing up, like I remember my neighbors had a Model T because they took such good care of it. They regularly maintained it. And, you know, at that point it was 70 years old. So you can, with good regular maintenance, we've been able to extend the life of the pipeline. And we also, you know, we go through a process to get our grant and lease extended through the government. So it's not just we went through that process when we hit 30 years and they extended it. So. Okay.
There's a couple more related questions. Are there plans to close the pipeline in the future, and how many years before the anticipated shutdown date based on projected oil reserves? Kind of related questions, so I put them together.
Oh, so the question was, is there kind of an anticipated shutdown date, and when is it?
Like shut down for maintenance, or shut down?
Shut down the life, the end of taps.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I like to share the story that, or from my perspective of, I want to see my kids work on this system someday, and we maintain it with that in mind. And that won't happen without hard work and without constant focus. But as far as a shutdown date, that is totally dependent on the natural resource up north. We know there is a ton of oil still up there. We have an established infrastructure in place, a very robust system in place that we continue to push for making it be an economical method for getting one of our state's most precious commodities to market. So there's still a ton of oil. Again, we have established infrastructure in place. We maintain it well. There is no shutdown date that we have mapped out, and hopefully that doesn't happen certainly in our lifetime and nor our kids' lifetime. So nothing established at this point.
Okay, thanks. Russ mentioned this in the chat and I wanted to, oh, it's going to be backwards on your screen, but this is an amazing book called The Spill, and it has first-person stories from the Exxon Valdez oil spill. It was put out by the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council, who we also partner with and normally would have jumped on something like this with us, but they are very specifically, they deal with the marine terminal and the tankers, but not the pipeline. And I always like to put in a plug on how cool it would be if we had something like the Regional Citizens Advisory Council that was also helping monitor and helping gain knowledge about the whole pipeline. So, but I do highly recommend this book, The Spill, if you want to learn more about it, especially for younger people who don't remember it. It's very, very eye-opening because it's the personal stories. It's not just what happened, but it's a bunch of people's personal stories who are there in the front lines. Any other questions, anyone? Awesome. Well, we want to thank all of the presenters. Amanda did a great job of kind of taking the lead on this, getting us all organized, helping figure out the technology, and Kenny Steck also from the Bureau of Land Management in Glen Allen. What a great team. And then Russell Scribner, who joined us from Wrangell St. Elias National Park. And thank you, Kate and Clint, for taking time out of your busy day to come and be the real pipeline experts. So thank you, everyone. Oh, there is one more question. Two more questions. One question, what keeps the three main pipeline partners working together?
It's definitely a very careful process that is monitored by, because, you know, there are, of course, there would be concerns about competition and, so it's carefully monitored by lawyers and other personnel, but they have a shared stake in getting, you know, the owner companies, they have a shared stake in making sure the producers, which are in many cases subsidiaries of the owner companies, getting their product to market. So they have to work together to do that.
Okay. And here's another question. I know there is concern about the tanker trucks that go up and down the highway. Are you at all involved with managing them?
We are not. So TAPS is the pipeline, and then that oil moving on tankers, on TAPS trade tankers. And so that's what our folks are, you know, we work on. The tanker trucks, I know DEC is on the line. They definitely, they're involved with that. But those tanker trucks are generally coming from refineries in North Pole, here in Valdez, and taking fuel up and down the Richardson and to other parts of Alaska. But that is, even though that product did originally come from TAPS, that is an affiliate, that is not part of Alyeska.
Okay. How do we get those guys on the phone and ask them some hard questions? That's what I want to know. Okay, and then there's a question, will you post a recording? And yes, we are recording this, and I will post a recording on the WISE website. And I think if we can figure out the technology, we can also post the link to that or email the link to that recording to everyone. Amanda, Russ, Kenny, anything else from you guys?
Nothing from me. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Robin. Hopefully see you in.
Thanks for participating, everybody.
Yeah, we'd love to see you all soon in person, please.
Well done, well done.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon and stay safe. Okay.